Three topics we're going to cover are very low cost, in fact free, but they do take a little bit of time and effort from those that want to complete them. But these three are the biggest reasons why people get cyber attacked. So we're just hoping that by going back to the basics, we reduce that risk of a cyber attack for anybody. So for those that have logged on to Menti, just the first quick question, give you a few seconds just to let us know how worried about a cyber attack are you, from very to not at all. So it seems like everybody is worried to some extent. I must admit, it's not something that keeps me up at night, but it is something I think about on a daily basis, not just because it's my job, but it certainly makes me look at things in a different way, both work and personal related. So for those that are on the call, have you ever been a victim of a cyber attack? Not so much just a phishing email or something like that. It's quite worrying of the people on the call, which is about 5%, I think, of people have had an attack. So that's quite a worrying number. So I'm going to jump straight into passwords. So again, going to ask another question. What's the worst passwords that you've used yourself personally or come across? Just a little caveat: if you're still using the bad password, probably best not to put it in. We've got the classic one there, password 123. When we're doing passwords, here's some simple rules around what would make a good password. So the most preferred one at the moment is the 3 random words: a favorite book or nursery rhyme, song, phrase that you like. You can pick 3 words out of that. They should be unique for every account and stored safely. So that's where password managers come into play. There is this website that people can use. It is something that the Digital Care Hub have checked and have made sure that it's okay. So actually, password 123 apparently would take 41 years to crack. Personally, I wouldn't use it because it is quite a common password. So is QWERTY or QWERTY 1234. Again, the more you add, the longer it takes to crack. So using a phrase, I've used one from a nursery rhyme, obviously not correct because it was a little lamb. That's 300 years to crack. And then we can make it a bit more funky by changing things. I always think this is a little bit too obvious. But changing the A's, doesn't matter how many I change, and then changing that L to a 1. But you can use this in maybe a staff meeting. But it's just a little fun game to see who's actually got the strongest password. So I've been in social care now for around about 18 years. Part of that was working for a big domiciliary company, and I spent over 10 years as a trainer. And I used to cover Kettering, and a firm based in Kettering, Northants Way, was Knights of Old, a transport company. And I used to drive past their lorries a lot, but it was Knight spelt with a K, and quite a cool company logo. Always caught my attention. The young boy in me liking Knights and whatnot. But last year, a company that had been going for over 158 years ceased trading down to what I believe was 1 single week old password. 700 employees, all gone, down to 1 password. And that's just one example. There are so many more. And then once you've got a good password, there's 2 more things that we can do. One is use a password manager, and the second one is use multi-factor or 2-factor authentication. And most of us probably use a password manager. I've got one here that I'm just demonstrating on the screen, which is the Microsoft one. It isn't necessarily the best. I'm not going to recommend which one is, but there are some paid versions that you can have that will hold all of your passwords securely. So you just need one master password to get into that, and then it will hold all the passwords for everything that you give to it. But it just means that it's more secure. So, for example, my laptop, I've either got to use my face recognition or a fingerprint to get into it, or a passcode. But then once I'm in it, everything is then locked down and secured and stored, and it's stored safely. And MFA or 2FA, I use this particular screenshot because it's for my NHS Mail account. I was talking to somebody that she's on this call, and I had to access an NHS Mail email. And I can remember physically groaning that I'd got to use my MFA. And then I checked myself and realised it's not actually that big a chore to pick up my work phone, open the Authenticator app, and put in the number as shown there, so that I can get access. But I must admit, I'm really glad that my banking app has 2FA or MFA, because the few pennies I've got in there, I'd like to be there when I need them. So that's passwords. Stating the obvious, but it's good to have a policies, procedures in place for the work environment and also personal environment, that we are taking this seriously. And all of the 3 bits today don't really matter until they do matter, and when they do matter, it's too late. I didn't want to use loads of scary things like Knights of Old, but that one always sits with me. I mean, at the same time, we'd had the MS and the Co-op, and then later on Jaguar Land Rover, all making the news. The next weakest link is staff training. I've used the Digital Care Hubs training because it's free. Ourselves at Lincolnshire Care Association also do a Lincolnshire County Council provided free training. So we've got it covered on 2 bases. There's lots of duplication there, but this sort of stuff is important. So it's good to have that training. With the Digital Care Hub, they've got some very simple to use, nice, easy learning. They've got it into 2 levels. So you've got one for everybody, every single member of staff, from support workers to kitchen staff, people working in the office, accounts, admin, managers. And then there's a second one for data security leads, who can do both. Just looking at the support worker or the general one, there's only 4 modules. I then looked at the first module, which is broken down into 2 areas. And that first area, it's literally broken down into 8 simple sections that are very easy and simple to read. I did the test this morning, as you can see there. And what's really, really good is I couldn't have lied, because it tells me there how many retakes I've taken, and I'm really pleased with myself. I did manage to get 20 out of 20. Would have been embarrassing if I didn't. But it's the assessment. It's 20 questions. Took me maybe, I don't know, 6 minutes or so to do, 5 minutes to do, read the questions and answer them. But just gives you an idea of how competent the member of staff might be. And then once passed, you can download a certificate as well. And the reason I mentioned the Digital Care Hub, if you've got a learning management system in place, it can be linked in, so that as members of staff do it, it automatically goes onto your LMS, learning management system. And I put the link in here. I was going to demonstrate the link, but what I didn't want to do was do what we shouldn't do with e-learning, which is click onto it and then click through every page as quickly as we can, because that's not the point of e-learning. It is to digest some of it. And there are some really cool bits on there. It's a mixture of sort of scenarios. There's some videos on there, and just some sort of important highlights. And then the next part to staff training, the second level, there's a cyber game on there. So this is a bit more fun. There are 3 characters that you can play, so you can set people into teams, give them different roles, or because there's different questions. So you've got registered manager, the digital security lead, or carer. I've chosen the carer one. And it just asks you several scenarios. So the first scenario here is you've got a member of staff that's taken some files that contain several personal and private details out of a client's home, and they've lost it. They've left it somewhere. They've put it down, left it somewhere. When they've gone back, it's not there. So it gives you the scenario, and then it asks you, well, which of these 4 would you pick? So I'm going to go on to the next slide where you can actually pick, and then we'll look at what it says, depending on which one's picked the most. So do you make sure that everything's locked away? Do you tell everybody to be careful with files? Do you rely on memory so that nobody ever has to take anything out of the secure environment? Or is it best to use an electronic record instead of paper files where possible? And we have somebody joining us. So I'll wait for a few responses. Again, if it's logged out or come off Menti, you can just quickly scan the code again and get in there. And if we don't have any responses, there we go. We've got one response. That's good. I'll give a couple. Oh, okay, cool. So I'm gonna. Oh no. Okay, we've got that one as well. Okay, so that's a 50-50. I know what the answer is to D, so I'll go for A. With the e-learning and with the game, if you've gone on and come off, because you don't have to do it all in one hit, it will just take you back to where you were. So we can click on A, and then what it does is it just gives you a score. So the lower the score, the better. So security is quite good, time's quite good. The cost is very, very good, but you might need to buy lockable storage. But if you're using it in a team meeting or in a training exercise, and you pit teams against each other, it can give you an idea of how well that team has done. But there is no perfect score, because if you get the highest level on security, the problem is that's usually quite costly, which is not doable for a lot of social care providers. Last little bit we're going to look at is patches. How quickly do you do patches? Well, you're still like me and running Windows Vista, so you haven't had a patch in ages. I was joking about the Windows Vista, but I've popped it on there because, just keep banging the drum to make sure that everybody's aware that Windows 10 is no longer receiving full support. That's the little icon that I get on the bottom of my laptop. Just let me know that there is an update there. I use Microsoft. I know with Apple it may be slightly different. But why is it important? And the reason it's important is so let's say Microsoft, they realize there's a gap, they realize there's an issue, and they develop a patch, then they send us the patch. So why is it important once we get that patch that we update and make sure that we're 100% or as best that we can be? Because the WannaCry is an old one now, but that brought the NHS to its knees. If you don't or haven't heard of the WannaCry, please just Google it. But it had a massive impact. And I think it's always bringing home to social care providers that I think sometimes we think we're exempt and it doesn't matter to us. But we do get hit, we do get attacked. But just doing these 3 simple things that I've gone through today can greatly reduce the risk of an attack. We can never be 100%. It doesn't matter how much we spend on cybersecurity. If you've got a member of staff on admin that answers the phone, that gives out vital information to somebody, or is socially engineered, it's not going to stop. They're going to get in. But these sort of things can help. But these 3 things are free. So as we come to an end, before we just go to a quick Q&A, just wanted to ask, how useful has today been from strongly disagree at 1, or the other end? That's very kind for the first person to go that end. Just give us an idea of where we are. And the last one, it's just a good old word cloud. Are there any words that you'd use to describe today? Something that we're doing, just some really good free resources.